Hi, grade 1. In math, we are going to be moving into geometry, and in geometry we are going to be looking at shapes. And that is something that is much easier to do at school because I can give you the shapes to look at, and at home you are going to have to look around and find things that kind of match it. So we're going to start off by talking about cubes and rectangular prisms. So the first thing you have to be able to do is figure out what shape this is and what shape this is. And I sure hope that you know that this is a square and this is a rectangle. And we talked about these shapes before. The difference between a square and a rectangle is, if I make another copy of the square, no matter which way I turn the square, all the sides are the same length. That is not true if I make a copy of the rectangle, because I can turn it and you should be able to see this side is much longer than this side, but it doesn't matter which way I turn the square, all the sides are exactly the same. However, in the rectangle, two sides are the same length, so the top and the bottom are the same length, and the other two sides are the same length. So this and this are the same, and this are the same. So we've done that in math like this. All the sides are exactly the same in a square, and in a rectangle, these two sides are the same length, and these two sides are the same length. This is not a square. This is a cube. So at school I would have given you a cube, but I can't do that. You might be able to find some cubes at your house. This is called a 3D shape because a square is flat and a cube you can pick up. And all the sides of a cube are called faces. And if you can stick a happy face, on a side, it's a face. So what you have to know about a cube is that all the faces of the cube are exactly the same. So if I stuck this cube to the wall and I traced it, I'm going to get a shape. And I sure hope you could see, if I traced these edges, you would know that I would get a square. And if I flipped it, if I flipped the cube and traced it again, I will still get a square. No matter which way I turn the cube, I'm going to get a square. Super duper important. Every face on a cube is a square. And I want to see if you can count how many faces that would be. Front, back, top, bottom, side, side. So altogether you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 faces. Front face, back face, side face, top face, bottom face. 6 altogether, and they're all squares. So if I show you something, you should be able to figure out if it's a cube or not. The most important thing about a cube is that it has all square faces. So you can see that this is a square, and this is a square, and this is a square. There are some sides we can't see, but they're all squares, so this is going to be a cube. Right away you should see this side is not a square, it's a rectangle. This is a rectangle, and cubes don't have rectangles, so this is not a cube. Domino. This side is a rectangle. This side is a rectangle. So it's not a cube. A block. This is a square. This is a square. This is a square. All the sides, all the faces are squares, so it looks like a cube. Cereal boxes. This is not a square. If you see any side that's not a square, it's not a cube. I wish we had these at your house. So square on top, square face on the bottom, and even though it's got this little sticky out point, that's just so that they connect, all the sides are square shaped, so it looks like a cube. This is not a square, and the top is not a square, and the side is not a square. These are called rectangular prisms. And if I trace the front, you should be able to see that that is a rectangle. If I trace the front here, that is a rectangle. A rectangular prism has rectangles. Has to. Or it's not going to be called a rectangular prism. So you can see there's a rectangle all around the edges there. The top and the bottom are rectangles. This one has rectangles on the side, on the top, on the back, and on the bottom. But if you look at those sides, this is not a rectangle. It's a square, which is fine. A rectangular prism can have all rectangles, or it can have 4 rectangles and squares on the sides. See? Square. So does it look like a rectangular prism? Does it have rectangle sides? No. Does it have rectangle sides? Faces. This is a rectangle. The top is a rectangle. The side is a rectangle. This would be a rectangular prism. How about this one? The front is a rectangle. The top is a rectangle. The side is a rectangle. This would look mostly like a rectangular prism. A can. So this kind of looks like a rectangle, but it's not, because you look at the top and you see a circle. Not a rectangular prism. Cereal boxes. The fronts are rectangles, the sides are rectangles, the tops are rectangles. Any way you would flip over a cereal box, you would see a rectangle. It's a rectangular prism. Party hat. You see any rectangles? I don't. I see a circle. Not a rectangular prism. So, cubes are like blocks and a die and a connecting block. Why? They have 6 faces. And I can't flip them over for you. If you had one in your hand, you could do it. You could see there are 6 faces. And every face is a square. This is harder because they have the little knobby things on top. It's still a cube, mostly. These are rectangular prisms. So the 2 ends can be squares or they can be rectangles all the way around. If you look at a desk drawer, you are going to see all the sides are rectangles. This is going to be a rectangular prism. A box, a domino, a stack of paper. Think about it, talk about it with somebody. Are they going to be rectangular prisms? Are all the faces rectangle shaped? Then they're going to be rectangular prisms. You have 2 pages to do. Page 141 and 142. On page 141, you're going to be looking at cubes. I want you to circle all the things that look like cubes. And you probably should X out the things that are not, just so that you don't skip any, because grade 1 is always like, oh, this is easy, and you go too fast. A cube. Every single side is a square. If there's a side that is not a square, it's not a cube. Here you have a square, but this is not a square, so this is not a cube. here you have to draw more things that are cubes. And they say almost cubes because, look, these connecting blocks, they have the little thing that sticks out. So it's not exactly a cube. It's going to be an almost cube. Close enough. So draw things that are almost cubes. Try not to steal from here. Look around your house and see if you can find something that is cube-shaped. On page 142, you have to do rectangular prisms. Rectangular prisms have rectangles all around or rectangles and squares on the end. So this one has squares on the end, but it's got rectangles, so this is a rectangular prism. And draw two things that look like rectangular prisms at the bottom. Try not to copy from up there. Okay, page 141, 142.